Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Our guest today is Luis Brito e Faro. Welcome to the show, Luis.
Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me.
Luis is the co-founder of Brave Generation Academy. So that's the main reason why we've invited him to the show today. Luis, let's start by having you walk us through your journey from being a mechanical engineer and a rugby coach to co-founding the Brave Generation Academy, and what inspired the transition towards the BGA.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll even take you a step back to my 12th grade high school times. I was never a big fan of school. I used to obey, so I had to go via the rules and do what the teachers told me to do and so on, but I never actually agreed on how things were done. But I never had in my mind also to change it. I just thought it had to be changed. And as I didn't know what I wanted to do, I went to mechanical engineering because it would just give me really good skills in terms of problem solving, critical thinking, etc. And whilst I was there, as I didn't really enjoy the course, I started to get creative on how to find, how to make it more interesting and how to find strategies to study and so on to get through it. And I started coaching. I played rugby all my life, but then when I was in university, I also started coaching. And that's when I found the power of education. So first with a course only with me individually, but then as a coach towards others and towards youngsters. And how having a role model that I also had myself as a rugby player as a kid, the impact that I could be having on other kids. And then, funny enough, Tim Vieira, the founder and CEO of Brave Generation Academy, is South African, half Portuguese, half South African. And he's also a big fan of rugby. So I was with my under 16 and I went to play against St. Julian's, and his son was playing in St. Julian's under 16. And I'll never forget that match. We got beat. So it was a tough loss for us. We weren't supposed to lose that game. But rugby, you shake hands at the end. So that's how I met Tim. And I also met him later on or earlier on in a startup accelerator. So our relationship started to build. And at some point, I saw him sharing on LinkedIn that he was starting this alternative schooling program and so on. And I wanted to be part of it. So at the time, I was working a corporate job, but I just saw that everything made sense, both from a pedagogical perspective, taking into account what I went through in school and what I thought it should be done through a coaching perspective, but also from an entrepreneurial perspective. I really wanted to do something with impact and start something fresh from scratch and just have the experience of starting something of my own. And Tim, I saw the opportunity to join Tim in this venture.
Luis, you have had international experiences in Portugal, Panama, and United States. How have these diverse cultural influences shaped your approach to education and coaching?
So starting with Panama, which was my first international experience, university there was very, very different. So I studied and worked in Panama for a year. And for the first few months, I was studying university there. I was doing a master's. And the university was very, very different. So what I felt was that I was a little bit back in school. So teachers were very much, everything was relied on me going to class, relied on, listening to everything that the teacher said on class because there was no material online. The attendance, they were super tight on attendance. And this is exactly the opposite of what happens in Portugal. So in Portugal, you get into a public university and it's very, very much like results driven. The teachers don't even know your name. There are 100 people per class. And that allows you, create some flexibility for you. You understand how you want to make the most of it out of your time. You really, really learn how to be autonomous, how to be responsible, etc. Because you're exposed to that context and to those challenges. And there's a huge learning curve there. Whilst in Panama, it was the opposite. So I there it's where I really felt the first hit of like, whoa, flexibility really, really is important. And then moving to the US. Compared to Europe, what I feel the most is with regards to first of all, being more open-minded to alternative systems. So in Europe, we're more conservative in that aspect. You know, we have been doing the same thing for hundreds of years, and I think across the world, but Europe specifically. And then there are a lot of regulations. So it's really, really hard to start something different, or even to start something, because you have to comply with so many regulations. Most of them, you know, you don't even know they exist. Whilst in the US, you kind of can do it, obviously varies from state to state, but in Florida specifically, where we are based at the moment, where we have our first hub, it's very loose. So, you know, it's very prompt to people experiencing and trying out new things.
You said it's very loose. Isn't that something that every business owner or every entrepreneur dreams of, right? To just have the environment, just have the freedom to start something new, right?
100%,
And
100%.
not to have to fight regulations and spend most of their energy on regulations and removing red tape.
100%. And when, once again, not even going to the education system itself, you just business wise, comparing the US to Europe, and then specifically to Portugal, where we started. Portugal is very, very bureaucratic. So you end up spending a lot of time and money just navigating through the system. Whilst in the US, you want to get started, you get started, let's go. You know, and that's why in the US is so dynamic in starting and in failing. But at the end of the day, you have so many people trying that the sea rises for everybody.
It's very interesting that you're mentioning the bureaucracy, and I don't think that's specific to Portugal. I think Europe is it's heavily bureaucratic. I was talking to a couple of real estate investors from Europe, and one of the first conversations they had is like, "Do you know about legislation and everything?" And I'm saying like, "Okay, I don't, but is it that important?" Yeah, it's that important. Like, basically, every company has to have like a legal counselor to help them, navigate through, even if he's not a full-time person, right? But they have an attorney to help them navigate through the legislation and through the bureaucracy. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that's one of the reasons why I moved from Europe 20 years ago. I moved away just to run from bureaucracy. I'm not a fan of it, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very close with also a partner, an owner of a real estate firm in Portugal, and he has in his team, he has someone that has worked for the municipality for years and that knows all of the ins and outs, has all of the networking and so on. And he said if it wasn't for that, it would take him ages to get things done, and the costs and so on. Right now, he has done and is developing a condominium, and about like 5% or 10% of the cost will go to licensing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the reality is, people don't realize this cost is being put back on a final consumer. The companies are not making money out of thin air. They're making the money of their clients. So everything that this bureaucracy adds to the cost is being passed on to the final customer. Yeah, that's why I think Europe is too expensive of a place for me, at least for right now. If I was to consider living in there, like it's kind of heartbreaking to see that you work and you give away like what, just a incredible amount of your earnings in taxes. And
it's your biggest shareholder is the state.
I just don't think I'm ready for that yet, or maybe ever.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So, Luis, I wanted to ask you to delve into the core mission of Brave Generation Academy and how it aims to revolutionize education, how education is being done.
So we want to create a space where learners can write their own path. So what does this mean? This means for them to figure out who they are, first of all, who they are at the moment as a person, as a professional, as a student. And that's really hard, especially as a teenager. It's constantly changing, but we must help them with this process. And then number two, where do they want to be? So what's the end goal? And that end goal, once again, can change, but it's important to have a direction in your life, to have somewhere where you want to go and get moving. And then number three, from what's going to get you from point A to point B. So we help them come up with plans and designs that, once executed, will take them from point A to point B. What's going to happen with this process? They're going to figure out that it's not everything is rainbows and unicorns. You're going to make a plan and God will laugh, right? And it's going to fail. The plan's going to fail. That's fine. You're going to adjust. You're going to rethink yourself. You're going to, rethink about your strategy, and you're going to keep on moving and keep on moving, be resilient, and things will improve. And it's, everything's on the journey as well. Make the most out of it. And if we are able to create this type of the opportunity of taking initiative, of being proactive, of developing relevant skills and not skills that other people tell them to develop, and as a consequence they become more mature and more autonomous, more responsible for themselves. And I think this is the type of people that we want in any society, and they tend to be also the most fulfilled people, at least that I know of.
You said something, relevant skills, right? What we're not seeing in today's society, educational system, especially public system here in the United States, is relevant skills that are relevant, applicable skills to real life situations, right? So whatever kids are being taught in school, very little applicability in real life. So what's the point of spending like 4, 8, 12 years or 16 years in schools? When you get out of school, you can't really apply too much of what you have learned. What's the whole point, other than like having a piece of paper saying that you graduated, right?
100%. And you're fully in debt, especially in the US. You're in debt, and then you don't know what to do with it. Whilst maybe if you did like a 6-month online like UX UI course, or if you went to a vocational program and you learn some practical skills, you'll be able to immediately start having some return on it in your life. But that's not but some certain shifts is starting to happen. I think the college tuitions are really getting crazy, and everywhere in Europe as well. In Europe there's another problem, which is the housing market. So if you want to go to Amsterdam, you want to go to London, you want to go to Lisbon, you have to be able to afford really expensive housing. And students are starting to think, why? Maybe I should just do an online course. And and the second thing is, your relevant skills will change. So someone that enters the job market today will have on average 17 jobs. This is why it's so important for you to constantly rethink your strategy and where you want to go. Because you're going to constantly be having to rethink your skills and gain new skills. That's why it's so important to stay relevant.
Well, in today's society, most of the information that you study in, like your first and second year of a 4-year college, becomes irrelevant by the time you finish. Most of it.
Yeah. And even if it is relevant, I think you don't really remember about it because you've never put it into practice. So there's this pyramid of knowledge, like of understanding, which is the worst way to gain knowledge is through a lecture. The best way is to teach others. And in the middle, somewhere in the middle, there's discussions, there's experience, there's putting into practice, and so on. And what we're doing, we're just lecturing. The kid sits the exam and then he forgets all about it. I think this happened to all of us, right? So what we have to start doing is the opposite. We have to start giving them experiences, first of all, for them to understand if that's what they really like or not, and to not waste any more time of it if it is not. But also for them to then integrate the theoretical knowledge into something practical that they will not later on forget. And that's not what's happening with bachelors and so on.
My understanding is that your academy offers both traditional and modern disciplines. How do you ensure a balance between the two? And what benefits does this comprehensive approach bring to learners?
Yeah. So when we first chose our curriculum, we wanted something that was flexible, so that allowed the students to do their courses at their own time, to decide when they could sit their exams, so to give more ownership towards the kids. But it also had to have some authority, right? We were starting out, we wanted something that was recognized worldwide, that people would know about it, that universities would know about it if the kids wanted to go to university. And that's why we chose the British International Curriculum. So the IGCSEs and the A levels, which gives a lot of flexibility in terms of subject choice and so on. And later on, we've also adapted American curriculums. So we're offering two at the moment, two American curriculums, also flexible, but more aligned towards the American ecosystem of universities and vocational schools and so on. And what's the balance here? So we have three pillars in BGA. We have knowledge, skills, and community. Knowledge is where this part comes in. So the accredited curriculum that will give you a high school diploma once you finish it, and then you can do whatever you want with it. You can go to university, you can go and work, it's up to you. But you get a high school diploma, and that opens a lot of doors, obviously. But then what we don't want is for you to get stuck with a traditional curriculum. Why? Because it's outdated. Why is outdated? Because it takes a lot of bureaucracy once again to change it. And at the speed that things are happening, it's really, really hard to keep up with the market, keep up with the relevant skills. So that's where the skills and community pillar comes in. That's where, if you want to be a data scientist, we will not be developing a subject on it. What we will do is that we will look into Google, into IBM, etc., and we will see what are the courses that they are offering, right? Because those are the guys that are hiring. Those are the experts. And so you're always up to speed with what the market is needing from you. And when we talk about data science, we can talk about being a carpenter, being a plumber, being a veterinarian, being a tattoo artist, whatever it is. And so you're not only up to speed with what's happening in real life, but you're also getting experiences from the most passionate people that are doing it. So instead of being dependent on a teacher that is probably, at high school level, probably only a teacher, nothing else, and has been doing that for like a decade, you're actually doing it with the people that are the most experts and that, go beyond the theory and understand how that theory applies in the real world, which is always different and can give you a lot of insights into it.
So let me make sure I understand this correctly. Are you saying that your students are studying with with individuals that work at Google and Microsoft and all those companies, like they work with them directly instead?
They can. So just to give you for people to visualize how everything happens. So instead of thinking of a school, think of a co-working space. Okay, so 1,500 square feet, a relaxed zone, a kitchen area, a focus room, which is similar to a conference room for them to really get some one-on-one work done, some focused time. And the hub is open. We call them hubs. The hub is open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Has 2 learning coaches in there, which are basically life coaches without the guru part, because nowadays everybody's a life coach, right? So they're there really to create strong relationships with the learners and guide them and facilitate their learning process. And then we have 30 learners, 6th grade and above, mixed ages in the same space. These learners will decide on the curriculum to do, so the thing that will get them the high school diploma, right? And will allow them to get into university then. But as important as this is for them to understand what are their passions, what are the relevant skills beyond the curriculum that they want to acquire, and the learning coach is there to help them as well. And this is when they go beyond the walls of the school, so to say, that we don't really have, because our hubs are really, really open to the community. And they'll say, okay, I think I want to be a vet. And the learning coach, okay, when do you want to be a vet? I like animals, I like this, I like that. Okay, I'll find you a clinic for you to do an internship. And we'll find a clinic. And the learner will go in there and we'll work with the animals, we'll scrub tables, we'll manage clients, whatever it is that the clinic is offering for him to do. We're talking about a vet, but it can be a data scientist, and the data scientist will probably think, okay, I want to be a data scientist. And the learning coach will say, okay, what skills should you acquire? Well, maybe the learning coach has some networking. We'll connect him with some data scientists. We'll reach out on LinkedIn. We'll reach out on LinkedIn to professionals and we say, we need some help, some guidance. We put down a plan and say, okay, you have to do like the IBM online course or the Google data science course, online courses. And then you should look into reaching out to this and these companies to see if you can do some shadowing. And that's how we operate. So those people will not only acquire the theoretical skills, but the technical skills, but also, the practical skills of getting to a company and so on. If that company is Google, that's a different story. But we are reaching out to bigger companies to try and get more, formal partnerships. But as our hubs, we have like a network of 50 hubs across the world. A lot of times it's done locally with local companies. And so what the learner ends up doing is, just to give you a practical example of this, we had this learner want to be a vet. We found an internship for him. 2 weeks in, the internship was over, and the clinic actually told him, we want to stick with another 3 months with you. A 17-year-old doing already an internship in the clinic. And much more than what that learner is learning about anatomy and everything that has to do with vets that I don't really know about, is the fact that we're putting a youngster going by himself to a clinic, introducing himself. Hey, my name is Luis. I'm here to do my internship, being under pressure, managing, animals in pain and so on. These are the soft skills that are needed so much nowadays. And that is really hard to categorize and to teach through PowerPoints. You actually have to put them in environments where that will thrive. And the opposite has also happened. So we had a kid that wanted to be a vet because he loved animals, and he didn't make it until the end of the first day because he couldn't handle the pain of the animals. And this was a really good opportunity because it was one less door for him to worry about. So because, maybe what would have happened, he would have gone to vet school, and then he would have become a vet, and then he didn't want to lose on all of the investment that he had made, and then he would be 40 and he would be looking back, okay, what do I do now? I buy a Porsche, or it's hard. So we want to anticipate all of those experiences when they're kids. We want to promote a space where they can fail, where it's okay to fail, it's okay to try and get it back up and just keep on moving.
I love this. You give them the opportunity to learn what they like, and also to learn what they don't like,
Exactly.
or might not like.
That's really, really important nowadays. Really, really important.
Of course it is. Of course it is. How many people, you'll see unhappy in the world. They're unhappy with the work they do, and they've been doing it for 20, 30 years, and they're looking back and they're saying, well, I'm too old to start something new. And they keep being, unhappy and miserable. So I think this is a wonderful way. I'm really loving this. Luis, how many hubs do you have in the United States?
We at the moment, we only have one. We have one in Boca Raton, down in South Florida, and we're looking now to open a few more. So we've only properly launched about 3 months ago.
Okay. How many students over there in Boca Raton?
So for September, we're actually open all year round, but we did a pause now during the summer to do a reset. We're expecting about 10 learners in the hub. So that's about a third, 30%.
Tell me about your criteria to start a new hub. Like, why'd you start in Boca Raton? Why not in Memphis, Tennessee, or Philadelphia?
Yeah. So we have two ways of opening hubs. One of them is proactive. So, we do our market research, we see the potential, etc. And we say, okay, let's open a hub and let's put out the marketing and the salesperson and everything. And the second one is someone raises their hand and says, look, I like to have a hub here. And we say, okay, find me, 6, 7 kids. We need 10 kids to break even, more or less, and we'll open a hub. And that's how we've opened the majority of the hubs, which is people listen and they get excited about BGA and they get excited about having their kids in BGA and they raise their hand and we make it happen. And that's a little bit how it happened in the US. So we had people from Portugal moving to the US, moving to South Florida, Boca Raton, and they said, okay, would it be possible to have BGA in Boca Raton? And we said, okay, let's make it happen. We want to test out the US market, see how it is. It's a very exciting market. So that's how we went about it. So we had 3 kids moving on. But as you know, we grew really, really, really fast. So only recently have we been putting a lot of effort in making it grow even further.
So Luis, worldwide, how many countries you're in and how many hubs you have totally?
So we're in 7 countries. So that's Portugal, Spain in Europe. And then it's Namibia, South Africa, Mozambique, and Kenya in Africa, and the US. We're going to open in Thailand and in India very, very soon. In terms of hubs, we're between 55 and 60 at the moment. 55 and 60 hubs total. So we're going to go at about 1,000 students in September.
Nice. Nice. 1,000 students is a good number. A
Number.
good start, right? Next, Luis, I wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit on a unique pathway program and how does it offer a flexible educational journey for learners?
Yeah. So we wanted to move along and get into adults. So we launched BGA for adults, and we were looking for options to stay with our model. So we wanted, like a higher education model, but still with the flexibility with the hubs and the learning coaches and so on. And that's what we did. So we are offering 4 bachelors, which is business management, education, computer science, business management, education, and I'm missing one at the moment. So everything is portfolio based. There's no exams. There's a series of work that the students have to deliver, and which is then graded and then builds up on their portfolio. Okay. The beauty about this is that you don't have to finish your 12th grade to start this. So if you're 16, you can actually start a bachelor's with us. And once again, sole focused about serving the learner, making it as personalized as possible. And that's it. And then you get a bachelor's at the end for a fraction of the price that you would. We have partnerships with universities in the UK, in South Africa, in the US, and some more coming along.
You have mentioned strategic partnerships with organizations and educational institutions, and you provided some examples, right? But how are these partnerships contributing to hands-on learning and internship opportunities?
Yeah, so we have two types of partnerships. So we have the ad hoc local partnership. So as I was saying, the learning coach is a kid that needs something, and so he literally goes online, finds the phone number of the place where he is looking for his learner to intern, gives them a call, see if that's possible, and then from a central perspective, we standardize it. But then we also have partnerships at a higher level, so central level, where we want that to affect all of BGA. Most of these partnerships are online because we wanted to work in the US, work in Portugal, South Africa, wherever it is. We want it to be across BGA. But it's always, once again, to put the learner first, to understand how we can serve them. But it really is not so much hands-on when it comes to high-level partnerships. It's more like languages, clubs, coding, and so on.
So as I was sharing with you on our initial conversation, my background is multifamily. So this is a podcast that's dedicated mainly to multifamily, and I'll say specifically heavily on multifamily operations. One of the issues that we have in multifamily in the industry is that the lack of qualified personnel, especially in maintenance, right, in the trades. So we're looking at a significant deficit of qualified personnel in maintenance. You mentioned that you offer the high school education. You mentioned the higher education, like a bachelor. Is there anything that you offer in between, kind of like a technical school credential or a diploma?
Yeah, it's coming. So we have that in the pipeline, probably for 2024 only. And what we want to do is that we want to partner with companies. So, as companies are the ones that have the lack of it, they're also the most motivated ones to make this work. So what we're doing is we're looking at the moment to start, what are the jobs that have the least qualified people and that we could really make an impact in. So, it can be like in Portugal, it would be like when you're doing a construction, construction management, or the people that are actually working there at the lowest level, most of the times they're not qualified. And so what we want to do is, or like, for example, safety in work, safety and hygiene in work. And so we want to go to the companies, we find people to train them, we get qualifications from the local, in Portugal is EFPA, which is which is the institutions that manage the jobs in Portugal. and we get certified to qualify people in those areas. We make personalized courses for the companies because every company needs slightly different people, and we just get it going. It's not that hard because most of the times it's like 3-month qualifications, 6-month qualifications, and it then makes a really big impact on the company. So that's what we're looking at. We're not offering at the moment, but it's happening everywhere. It's not only in the US. In Portugal, we have a lot of lack of qualified people.
So you're saying if a company, multifamily industry, reaches out to you and they're saying, hey, we're lacking qualified personnel, would you help us educate, let's say 30 people, 30 individuals that never done maintenance before? Could you help us educate them and get them to a point between class environment and hands-on training to get them to a point where they could actually be productive and they could actually produce results, like become a maintenance professional? Is there something to do?
Something like that. So we would design the courses on the theoretical part ourselves. That would be online. We're trying to do it online. And then the practical part, that's where we have to partner with the companies, because we will not have the labs ourselves. We will not have the technical equipment ourselves, the maintenance and so on. So we will partner with the companies. For me, I'm trying to think of the words because these are really technical words in Portuguese, like the operators and so on. But let's say that you have to operate a truck or some sort of internal transport in the factory. That's something that you have to get qualified in, with all of the safety measurements and so on. So we would design the online course, and then we would ask the company to support us in the practical part of the training, and we would be able to qualify that person.
Luis, what does a typical day look like for a BGA learner at one of your hubs? How do you ensure their engagement and active participation in a learning process?
Yeah. So a normal day, I'll normally explain the normal week, because the days, they're quite different. So normal week, what would happen is that, the learner would come in, let's say that he wants to come in at 9 on a Monday. You'll already have a scheduled time with the learning coach to sit down and do the weekly meeting. What's the weekly meeting? It's when you revise what happened in the past week. So you review what happened, what happened better, what you still have to improve. And then according to that, you plan the upcoming week. And this goes across the 3 pillars. So this goes across knowledge, skills, and community. In terms of the curriculum, what assessments are you missing? What do you have to retry? What do you have to redo? We look back into the feedback that the course managers, who are the practical teachers, the technical teachers, gave, and so on. So the learning coach will, go through all of the safety nets. So we've developed a lot of safety nets in time to make sure that learners don't fall behind, and that we're able to engage with them. And when it comes to planning the upcoming week, so let's say that, for example, knowledge, the learner would say, okay, so today and tomorrow I want to finish unit 1 of history, and I want to finish unit 3 of maths. All right, so you're on track to sit the exam or to finish the course whenever you decided that you wanted to finish the course. And then on Tuesday, I have an internship in the vet in the morning, so I'm only coming to the hub in the afternoon. And let's say that this learner is also a surfer. So he sees that on Thursday, the waves are really good in the morning. So he'll surf from 8 to 10 a.m. and then he'll come to the hub. But then on Wednesday, he sees, the waves are not, after all, the waves are going to be good in the afternoon. So he talks to the learning coach and says, look, I'm thinking of changing my plan. What do you think about this? And the learning coach will either say, look, you're falling a little bit behind. I think you should really stick to the hub and work a little bit harder, or you're doing fine. I think that's a good idea. Go and enjoy your surf. Go and train, and this goes again. We have Olympic athletes, we have people representing their national teams in a variety of sports. So for sports people, this is really, really good also to make it flexible when they have to match it with team practice or with the nature and environments and so on, which are outside of the control. So it's very, very flexible. There's a plan, there's safety nets, there's some alarms in case things start not going that well. And we also work very closely with the parents to make sure that we're all on the same team. We all have the same narrative, because it's really important to make sure that we're all going in the same direction, because sometimes we might be saying something and the parents are saying different things or expecting different things. So it's really important for us to all be on the same boat.
We should understand that the schedule, the operating hours are not, your traditional hours that you would find at the school. Would you like to elaborate a little bit about the hours at your academy, and during the week and weekends and holidays? What are the hours?
Yeah. So when we started out, the first thing that we did is that we don't close. We don't close for summer. And people were like, why are you not closing? The kids need summer holidays and so on. And we asked, okay, do you know why summer holidays exist in the first place? Do you, Adrian, do you know why they exist?
Well, I guess everybody needs a rest. Everybody needs a break. That's what I would think.
But in school, it's because, 200 years ago, the kids needed to help the parents with the harvesting. So they needed a break from school to go and work. But I don't see kids in Miami going and harvest so much nowadays. So we took them out, and the kids actually take the holidays when it's best suit them and their families. So sometimes it's better to go in different times of the year and take their break then. And if they want to work through the summer, they can. And we have that happening right now. We have kids working through the summer because they want to sit some exams in October, November. So they're working now, and then they're going to take a break afterwards. And sometimes we have a lot of expats, so it's actually better for them to travel in low season. So it's better suited for that. And actually, a lot of teachers and schools complain when the kids come back from a big holiday. They come back and they have lost all of the routines, the habits, knowing how to write, and etc. So it's actually not healthy to have like a 3 months break in a kid's life. And then so we basically close 2 weeks in Christmas, 1 week in Easter, and that's good also to give a proper rest for our learning coaches where they can actually, turn off their phones and so on. And then we close for holidays, and then we're always open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and the learners can do their schedules. The guideline is 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's mandatory to come to the hub unless you have a justifiable reason for not to come to, and we make exceptions if we find it makes sense. But for us, the social part, the social skills are really important. So we really want the kids to come to the hub. And those 5 hours can be 8 to 1 p.m. or can be 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's up to you.
Luis, as your academy is setting foot in US, what are some expectations and goals for the impact of this type of educational model on students in this region?
Yeah. So a lot of things we still have to learn, but one is for certain, which is, first of all, with mental health. So the world, we're seeing a lot of kids with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of kids being diagnosed with all sorts of, ADHD and so on. And we're trying to give them all of this medication without trying to understand the root causes behind it. And this is happening in Europe, but this is happening in the US really, really strongly. There's this big study done by Yale, about 1 million students, something like that, in the US. And it's something crazy, like half of them are in medication, and of those half, like 25% are on constant medication against depression, against anxiety, against ADHD. And suicide rates drop in the summer. They're higher on Mondays for teenagers. And that's really where we're looking to make the most impact, and just trying to create an environment, once again, where they can take ownership, where they can feel that they are in control, non-judgmental, and so on. And we're seeing that impact with the students that we have already. It's being very, very positive, and we hope to make the same thing in the US and just give them time without losing on the quality, on the standards, and so on.
Luis, could you share a success story or an example of a student whose educational journey was significantly transformed through the BGA's approach?
For sure. So I can give 2 examples of 2 very different learners. One of them, they both were in the same school, very, very like a conservative, very academic school. They left, they came to BGA. One of them was able to finally start doing the subjects that he liked. He was able to start back to doing sports, back to doing music, which he couldn't do back in school because he just didn't have time to do it because that was just too heavy. They were just too heavy on the academic work. Um, and now he's actually in South Africa. So he's a rugby player, and now he's actually in South Africa because of the flexibility. We have hubs in South Africa, and he's playing with one of the top schools in South Africa. The rugby is really like school related, so each school has their own club, and he was able to register in the school and still do BGA, and he's having the experience of a lifetime, just going, being there in South Africa, playing rugby there, and feeling the culture. And the other one is this, rocket scientist type of kid. So he was also in school. He was a little bit bored because it was not too challenging for him. And now he's actually going to finish school almost 2 years early. And he's going to probably take a gap year or start working or something, because he was just, he can do the subjects in 1 year instead of doing it in 2, because he can study at his own pace. And he's already, all the time he's building stuff in this garage, blowing up stuff. If Elon Musk is listening to this, you can hire him for SpaceX. But yeah, it completely changed his life. And then obviously, we have a lot of kids that were not really understood in school, and teachers were against the way that they thought, and they thought they were just being rebellious, but they were just not fitting in, and they were not feeling understood. So naturally, you start fighting against the system because you feel that nobody understands you. And with us, we created the space for them not to feel judged, and for them to actually be. And a really important thing is to find something where the kids can really be good at, just one thing where they can be good at, and that will build their confidence and will affect the rest of their lives. And we really, really focus on it, on those small things that will then affect the rest of their lives. And every other week we get a message on our WhatsApp group of a learning coach, sharing a beautiful experience that they just had. I just had this summer here in Portugal. I was going out, and I found a learner, which was one of the first learners that we had whilst I was still back in Portugal, back in Porto. And she said that, and she went through a really tough time growing up before joining BGA for a couple of months, and she said, I got into Amsterdam. I'm going to university in Amsterdam. And then another student also had the challenges going to Amsterdam. Another one is going to Nelspruit in South Africa to work like in Kruger Park with the animals and also play rugby and everything. And it was actually an emotional moment where it was the first time, the BGA has been open for 2 years now. And I feel that now was the time that I don't want to say slow down, but that we consolidated. So it's the first time that we actually have time to enjoy all of this. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Very, very fulfilling.
Looking back on your journey with BGA, what have been some of the most rewarding moments or milestones for you personally? You just described a couple, but for you personally, what were some of the most rewarding moments in your journey here?
Yeah, it's really, really hard to have some standout moments. I think the biggest thing. So, when I first joined BGA, I was still also trying to find my path and find what I wanted to do with life. And this really gave me a good course in that sense of something that is really, really fulfilling, has an impact. It's very challenging. So I grew up a lot through it. I had huge mentors in BGA. I have it, starting with Tim and other senior people in the team also. I see them as huge mentors, and just seeing how I now perceive life a little bit differently as well. I see the impact that we're having on the learning coaches themselves, because, they have to tell the kids to follow their passions. They have to help the kids come up with plans and set goals and so on. So they start thinking, okay, why I'm not doing this for myself? And then they start going back to their passions. And we saw that happening multiple times already. So that's very fulfilling. We actually had one who was a brilliant coach. He went out to Australia to play rugby, and then he was going to take a master's in Paris. And he came back and, hey, Luis, I need to chat to you, etc. And he's like, when I was down in Australia, I figured out that I really, really love BGA. I want to stick to BGA, and I want to stay helping. So he gave up on his masters, and is coming back to BGA. And I think it's all of this, these relationships that we form, the challenges that we're overcoming together, and that's what it's all about. I think that it makes us understand that responsibility is one of the biggest blessings that we can have, having hopeful struggles is something really, really good. And I think that if we can pass it along to younger generations, that's going to be really, really good, because now more and more we're seeing, obviously with all the technology that we have and all of the comforts, we're seeing a little bit of a brave new world happening, as Aldous Huxley described, where we're just trying to make everything easier and leaving the metaverse and not having to face any struggles. And I don't think that's really what we should be chasing. And yeah, this journey has definitely taught me that.
Luis, for educators or individuals considering alternative educational models, what advice would you give them based on your experience with the Brave Generation Academy?
Well, it really depends where they're coming from. The biggest thing that I learned is just to start. In the US, there's a lot of people doing micro schooling. So if you're based in the US, you can look at things like Prenda and like Kaipov. So what's happening is that we have these educators working in schools, and they're not happy with how things are being done. They don't agree with the system, but they obviously don't have the resources, either time or money, to start the whole school. So they start micro schooling, which is a little bit like what BGA is doing. We're just doing it at a bigger scale. So, they rent a space and they start with 10 students, 15 students. They find a good online program, and then they fit in with the personal hands-on things themselves in the space. In Florida, this is very, very big. And as I was saying, there are two big organizations doing it, which is, one of them is Prenda. Kelly is the founder, is great person, entrepreneur and pedagogical entrepreneur. And they can help you start a micro school. And Kaipod is a different one. So I'll definitely look at those two options for you to start something of your own, and just get it started. Start small. Don't think too much about it if you can.
Lish, how can listeners learn more about BGA, about getting involved or explore potential opportunities for their own learning journeys?
Yeah, so we're on social media. So if you want to learn more about us, we have a documentary series on YouTube. So you just search Brave Generation Academy and you go to our playlists, and we have about 15 episodes by now, like 5-8 minute episodes, where you can listen about testimonials. You can see how our learners can still find their passions and pursue their passions, how there's time for everything, how does the curriculum work, etc., the structure of BGA. You can reach out to us on our website, www.bravegenerationacademy.com, or Instagram or Facebook. We're there. Just reach out, and we're always happy to set up a meeting, or for you to attend our webinar and learn more about us, or on LinkedIn. Whatever, we're always, we're very, very dynamic. We don't take too much to reply. We would love to have you on board and to learn more about us. So just reach out and learn more about us.
How can the listeners get a hold of you personally?
I think the easiest way would probably be LinkedIn or Instagram. Always, obviously, I always reply, obviously. So every time someone likes to learn more about it, we just can easily set up a call, and I'll happily, sit down with you guys. I cannot get enough of talking about BGA. So please don't be shy. Just reach out, and we'll set some time to chat.
We're coming to a close of our conversation today, Luis. I wanted to give you the opportunity to say something you maybe didn't have the opportunity to say during the conversation, or maybe to answer a question you wish I would have asked and I didn't.
Okay. No, I think we've got a lot of topics. I just think that the biggest thing is that education really, really has to change. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed for a long time. So now we're seeing more of a disruption than an iteration. And so, some people might be scared of it. But once you see different systems working, and you see the kids happy, and you see them developing relevant skills, which then obviously affects you as a family as well, you see that it makes perfect sense. And all of these systems, ours and others as well, that you might find, most of them have trial days. So just give it a shot. just try it out, and you're gonna see a huge impact on your kid and on yourselves as a family. Don't wait on others to do. Don't wait on, maybe even governments, because they move slow. They move slowly. Yeah, let's get it done.
Luis, Brito, the Faro, thank you very much for coming, for being here with us today, for spending the time. It was a real pleasure to have you on. And we hope to get you back here soon, maybe when you have 10, 15, 20 hubs in the United States, and tell us how it goes. And maybe we get you involved with the property management industry, with multifamily. So maybe we could produce some, professionals, some maintenance professionals out there, because we're there's a deficit of hundreds of thousands of qualified maintenance professionals in the industry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Adrian. I loved it. Thank you.
Everybody, I'm Adrian Danila, your host. This is Multifamily Chronicles. Thank you very much for watching us today. I hope to get you back here soon. Have a great day.